The Department of Homeland Security says that ransomware attacks have doubled in the last 4 years. The Treasury Department will create sanctions to try to prevent cyber criminals from profiting from those attacks. Ron Marks is a former CIA official and former intelligence advisor to 2 Senate Majority Leaders. Currently, he's president of ZPN National Security and Cyber Strategies. Ron, nice to see you.
Nice seeing you too.
There was the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack. Howard University here in D.C. shut down for a while because of a ransomware attack. What's going on? Why the increase?
Well, they're simply, first of all, it's profitable. You have a number of groups, mostly out of Russia at this point. And in spite of what the government has said over there, it's even if it were in their control, and it is to some extent, there are just a lot of them. And they know it's easy to do. They can access these sites. And by and large, people have been paying off. So as far as they're concerned, you know, it's the old joke about Willie Sutton, why do I rob banks? Well, it's because that's where the money is. I'm sorry to see that we've had that increase. I think heaven only knows Homeland Security at this point. Jen Esterly over there has done everything but stand with a pair of signal flags jumping up and down saying, don't do this, don't pay off. But it's hard
don't pay off is easy to say.
Yeah,
but when somebody's got your data, what are you supposed to do?
Well, and this goes to the fundamental problem of people taking it seriously. And I know this sounds funny, especially because you and I live in a place where this is a constant drumbeat. But if you talk to CEOs around the country, or if you talk to other people, by and large, they're sort of like, well, you know, I'll put the lock on the door and we'll put the alarm on, but it's all said and done. You know, are they really going to hit us? Or do we have enough that it really matters? And the answer is, yeah, you do. And you're going to find out, unfortunately, probably the hard way. This is a case of sort of bad risk management on their part. I always use the analogy of a house. You know, if you want to protect your house, do you put a bolt in the door? Do you put locks on the windows? Do you buy a dog? Do you get a shotgun? You know, what is it that you have to do? And it tends, and listen, I ran businesses, I understand. You know, you tend to, you're looking for profit. You tend to want to decrease that cost, if you can, of security, in part because it's amorphous. You know, if I buy $200,000 worth of security, what am I getting for this? Well, what I'm getting for it is I'm taking it off the bottom line. So it's nice that the government tells me to do this. I will fulfill their requirements, whatever they ask, because I have a fiduciary responsibility, so I can get away with it that way, get away with it in the sense of that's my bottom line. But it doesn't really get to the point, which is that this is like bank robbery or breaking and entering, which is that anybody's home or anybody's company can be subject to it.
But what is the role of government here in protecting individuals, in protecting private companies?
Well, I'm pretty hard over on this one, and I must admit, it's not necessarily popular to suggest that government can do much of anything. As you know, we seem to be in that time again. But, you know, one of its responsibilities, frankly, is social welfare. And this really goes to the guts of that. How do you protect IT systems that are now such a deep part of all of our lives? I mean, I want everybody to think about what they just did this morning. I don't know about you, but I got up, flipped on the computer, looked at the news to make sure, you know, I had something nice to say here, or at least, you know, current. I looked at my bank account. I was over on Drudge trying to get some news there. It's not only just a part of our lives in terms of information, but it's a part of our lives. Just think of your Amazon orders. Just think of your regular business on a day-to-day basis, your business communications. So, you know, with 85% in the private sector in terms of that, that's always a good number, 85%, but it seems like about the right one. You know, somebody has to protect this, and that's our job here, to do that, or at least to lay out some rules, because it's not the private sector's job. You know, every time I see a Facebook or an Amazon or whatever else say, we're going to do something about this and set up a group, that's fine. And I'm delighted that they do so. Tain't their job. And it is the government's job.
So what do you think of the Treasury Department's sanctions that they've announced? Is that going to change anything?
Well, it's interesting that they've gone after this in the way that they would have gone after drug dealers and organized crime. It's almost the old-fashioned RICO stuff, which is, you know, you go after the bank accounts, you sanction individuals, you let people know, essentially, look, if you pay off to these guys, you're going to be part of the problem here that we're looking at. The question again becomes, you know, how seriously can you get other people to pay, the people who are doing this, to pay attention? I think the Biden administration has been pretty good so far. I mean, it is a sort of a two-pronged attack right now. I mean, they have picked up the phone and gone to Putin for all that will do and say, look, knock it off. They have gone out, Cyber Command, I'm sure, has gone out and done their thing. And to do it from sort of the domestic side as well helps. But, again, I think you're up against a problem that is probably going to continue. You're going to ameliorate this problem. You're not going to solve this problem.
The federal government says, hey, we want companies to report and tell us when there's an attack that's happening. Companies don't like to do that. Sometimes they don't want to make that information public.
If I'm the chief security officer of a company, and my job is depending upon the fact that I kept that company secure, and I walked into the boss and said, that thing that I was supposed to do for you, I haven't done it.
And now let's make it public.
And now let's make it public. And if I'm the boss as well, or the CEO, or obviously in the C-suite, but elsewhere, even smaller companies, what have I just said about my system? What have I just said about my internal preparations?
So do we force them to report? Do we make it a regulation?
I hate to say it, but I'm leaning more and more in that direction right now. And I'll go back to the 1920s analogy when you had bank robberies crossing state lines and you finally created an FBI to step in. I think that's where we are right now. I think it's going to continue to get worse and pressed in different ways, in spite of guarantees from our friend Putin, because that's really about where 85–90% of this is coming from. In part because it is an easy way of disrupting us. That is the goal of Russia. They're not going to challenge us militarily, but this is part of the cyber and election and other things. So I think, frankly, just sort of laying down the rules and saying, look, you need to report this. I know people aren't in favor of that these days, but I'm just telling you, it's got to happen because it's a little bit like safety rules and whatever else. You don't allow people to put 20 people in a room anymore, okay?
Well, Ron, this issue is not going to go away.
No,
there's going to be a lot more conversations we're going to have about this. But thanks so much for coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you.